at rest and building a society that is peaceful. The Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs was represented by Professor Yusuf, who represented the Sultan, and Dr. Samson Ayokunle, also represented the Christian Association of Nigeria. Meanwhile, like you already read, Governor Nyesom Wike and another person, Mr. Newgate Ekamon, are the plaintiffs that have gone to court. They went to a federal high court in Abuja, and they are seeking relief on 8 counts. The respondents in this case, the first respondent is the People's Democratic Party. The second respondent is Independent National Electoral Commission. The third respondent is Governor Aminu Waziri Tambuwal of Sokoto State, while the fourth respondent is former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. The plaintiffs are asking the court, contending that the purported transfer of Aminu Waziri Tambuwal's vote to Atiku Abubakar is null and void by the PDP, and such is illegal and void. They are contending that Tambuwal, having stepped down during the primaries, ought to have had his votes nullified and not counted for. So far, the Wadata House is said to have been served, and the Atiku Presidential Campaign Office has also been served, but no date has been fixed for the hearing.
Well, I'm sure that there will be a lot more to emerge from the ongoing issues with the PDP presidential candidate, if not immediately, at least going forward. Once the campaigns are launched next month, we'll get to hear perhaps more issue-oriented matters flooding the public space, rather than the needless altercation that and insults that we are hearing in the meantime. Oh, you are this, or no, you are that, you did this, no, you did that. There are critical issues for us as a country to confront, and it is time that we got to know what the agenda of the various candidates would be. Are you tackling these issues? What is reasonable, what is not reasonable, and how do you proceed therefrom?
Yes, it's very worrying, the level of vulgar abuse, especially on the social media relating to the campaign. Issues have not been addressed, but I'm not worried because the formal campaign has not come in. By INEC's timetable, the formal campaign is supposed to start, I think, February 28. If I still remember the timetable very correctly.
Sorry?
No, September.
Did you say February?
February.
No, February, that's when the voting starts.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Yeah. So I think it should be sometime.
Yes, the campaigns, the calendar of electoral activities, I'm not quite sure the exact date, but it's next month. That's been in the public space
but the worry
for quite a while. Even though virtually, I mean, you're having a semblance of campaigns already.
Yes.
So you're having a semblance of campaigns already. It's just the formal flag off of it, where the political parties and the candidates will now formally be holding rallies and then selling their manifestos. And it's a season that would throw up a number of interesting issues. But sometimes, I mean, you're trying to make sense of the quarrels going on now, and it's pretty difficult.
Pretty difficult. Bayo, I'm sorry. We don't have much time today.
Yes, I was going to just add that Joshua Dari is also, there's indication that he's to be given the ticket for the Labour Party to contest to...
Yes, I read it. The class was Senate 5 days after regaining freedom.
Sometimes you just ask yourself why there seems to be little caution on the part of political actors. What were the grounds for the presidential pardon that he received?
Kingsley.
Hang on a second, please. The Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy, what were the reasons adduced for, say, releasing from prison?
Grounds of ill health?
Bayo, we'll see you. It's Friday. We'll see you next week because we've got to pay for our, got to pay our bills. So let's go on a short break. When we come back, we'll begin our conversation on taxation.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a prompt for our conversation, which is on emerging issues in tax compliance in the Federal Capital Territory, let's listen to this background report put together by our correspondent, Ekene Undulwe.
Collecting taxes and fees is a fundamental way for countries to generate public revenues that makes it possible to finance investments in human capital, infrastructure, and provision of services for citizens and businesses. Statistics from World Bank estimate the financing gap for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals for developing countries at about $2.5 trillion annually. Much of this financing gap will need to be met by increased private sector investment in sustainability, which requires appropriate tax policies. Yet, developing countries that are most in need of revenues often face steep challenges in collecting taxes. In Nigeria, some of the inherent challenges include multiplicity of taxes, tax evasion, bad administration, non-availability of database, tax touting, and non-payment of tax refund. Ensuring steady flow of revenue from taxes requires that government finds ways around these problems. It is in this regard that the Federal Capital Territory Inland Revenue Service introduced electronic tax clearance certificates to enhance service delivery and check forgery of documents. The ETCC was designed to make it difficult for falsification of documents with the introduction of QR code. It will be recalled that at the beginning of the year, the FCT-IRS set a target of 200 billion naira for itself, urging residents to change their negative attitude towards payment of tax through sensitization. At a recent capacity building workshop in Abuja, the acting executive chairman, FCT-IRS, said the office will commence auditing of residents of Abuja, especially high-net-worth individuals, to ensure they pay their taxes correctly and promptly.
People need to understand their civic responsibility. We see a lot of people that have dual citizenship, running everywhere to go back to the countries that are to file their tax returns. And when you talk to them here, they say, here is Nigeria. So we want to change that concept and perception because whatever you are doing outside of this country, you must do it here. And this is the time after this seminar that you would see activities. But we have also started seeing responses from quite a number of our taxpayers, from agents to individuals. So that is it. On the enforcement, from now to the end of the year, we are going to do a lot of it. All forms of enforcement will be used by the service.
Records show that 90% of FCT residents who registered for tax do not file their annual tax returns, leaving compliance rates at 10%. What are the issues around tax compliance in the FCT? What is the service doing to show up compliance? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be speaking on these issues in a moment.
Again, just to remind you, our focus this morning is on emerging issues in tax compliance, especially we're looking at the FCT. And we have our guests all seated. Let me begin my introductions from the studio here. We have Haruna Abdullahi, who is the acting executive chairman, FCT Internal Revenue Service. It's a great pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
And also with us is Malik Tuku, is Director, Tax Operation, FCT Internal Revenue Service. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, madam. Good morning.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is Festus Sapsa, Assistant Director of Legal Services in the FCT Internal Revenue Service. Mr. Sapsa, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you, man. It's my pleasure.
And joining us via Zoom for this conversation, Dr. Kennedy Iwundu is a tax expert. Dr. Iwundu, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's begin the conversation with the acting executive chair of the FCT Internal Revenue Service. The FCT-IRS is probably one of the youngest in terms of creation.
It is,
yes, in the Federation.
Yeah.
So what has the story been in recent years? Because we hear that your numbers are looking up, but how well are these numbers?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you again for this question to introduce the FCT-IRS. So yes, it's the youngest member of the Joint Tax Board. The FCT-IRS Establishment Act was 2015, so just a few years down the line. But major operations and started somewhere January of 2018. So previously, of course, the role of the FCT-IRS was being conducted by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So of course, when the act was passed, and of course the service took over, we took over the responsibilities from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. And between, I just give you in context, in let's say from that year, from when we took over to now, the average collections was about 48 billion. And of course, we are now talking about over 100 billion. So the numbers have been quite good, of course, with the support of the administration. And of course, the FIRS itself, because the FIRS has been a big brother to us under the GTB platform and also under the tax administration system here in the FCT.
So you're still being breastfed?
Yeah, well, I hope so. I mean, it's a big brother. They have been here. They have technical capacity. We also want to continuously learn from them. And yeah, so yeah.
Okay, let's look at the man in charge of operations. So you've been getting good returns, because from the figure that the acting ED has just told us. But what has it been, collecting in the collection process? Has it been seamless for you?
Okay. Thank you very much. The collection process, evolved with time. There used to be a period when everything was manual. People used to bring cash to the office, and there was a lot of issues. Of course, the IT came up, and we went IT as well. So in order to ease the compliance process, we introduced several platforms, to encourage self-service, to encourage compliance. For instance, we have a self-service for filing, we have a self-service for payment, we have some USSD, to check your TIN and get, what is my TIN, what is my TIN? You can do it with your handset, you don't need to come to the office. And on payment, it has been really seamless for those that want. There is still the provision to walk to the bank, and fill a teller, queue up, and pay your taxes. But then I think we're getting over it, gradually. So yes, there has been tremendous improvement in terms of seamlessness of compliance.
What about in terms of behavior and attitude? Does your sum reflect, positive indices in that?
Yes, definitely it is positive because the figures are rising. And ease of accessing service is one of those issues which led to that increase. So yes, there is very positive response from the taxpayers. Well, I know taxation, nobody wants to pay tax. And then to compound it by making the process difficult, no, we want to ease the process of complying. That's why we introduced these services to aid it.
Malik Tukul, thanks. Before we bring in the Assistant Director in charge of, I want to go back to the Acting Chairman.
All right.
But, tell our viewers what is changing in the FCT-IRS tax collection Because you say the numbers are looking up from 48 billion is now climbed to triple digits. That's to say 100 billion naira. What is changing in the matrix?
Well, I think I need to give it some kind of a context in terms of what the service is doing and why we are doing what we are doing, and probably give you a bit of a story in terms of. So previously, I mean, years back, I know in the 80s, there used to be a guy, a man, a very old man who was living in our house. And everybody used to call him a madman. And so there was a day a friend of my dad came and I said, what are you doing? Why are allowing a madman sit in front? And of course, Malam Buba stood up and said, look, I'm not a madman. And wait, let me even prove to you. So he went and brought some papers. I didn't know what they meant, but those papers subsequently meant they were receipts he paid for as revenue, you know. So he now challenged the other guy that called him a madman to say, look, I am not a madman. I pay my taxes. Show me yours. And the truth is, the guy never had anything to do with government. So in the context of what the service is doing right now, it's just a rider to say, look, things used to happen before. We're encouraging people to now do that. And as part of that, and maybe I need to refer to the Constitution of the Federal Republic, Section 24F, where it talked about duty and responsibility, and of course citizenship. That says every citizen has a duty to declare, file his appropriate, correct taxes as and when due. So the service looked at that and said, look, we need to engage people. And we, at the beginning, it's not a carrot and stick kind of thing. It's more of a carrot kind of thing. And people, we started seeing the engagement where it was paying off. We, Director of Taxes will tell you, individuals, Abuja residents that would normally not, they come to us, they say, look, we've been residing in so street and no tax, nobody has come to us. So people have come themselves as individuals to come and pay their taxes. That we have seen, and it has shown we have recorded improvement in terms of the collection. And agencies as well that have been agencies, when I say agencies, corporate bodies and people doing businesses, they do come. They do send their finance directors to come and get us to come and go down to their offices to enlighten them, to educate them. That has been key to what we have been doing and where we are seeing some of the responses, and in terms of also looking at the bottom line going forward. So that is key. So it's not always bad news in terms of compliance, but yes, that is a very small percentage of people that are complying. And we are trying to say from this number, now we estimate it to be at just about 10%. If we can even take it to 60, 70%, I think the service and the administration would be in a very comfortable place to say they have enough. Well, it will never be enough, but at least the IGR can sustain and create some kind of responses around the city. So in terms of that, and in terms of the bottom line, I think that is what the service has focused on in the last 5 years, I would say.
What are the major sources of collections at the moment?
For the service? Probably Mr. Malik.
Yes, you know, you have taxes and they are clearly defined. You know, we have personal income tax. The payee that we know is actually a form of personal income tax. Just like you have direct assessment. Direct assessment is assessing individuals directly that are not in employment, like employees. Okay, and then we have, you know, other forms of taxes, like the entertainment tax, you know, business premises. I don't want to mention the issue of property tax, but it's in our purview. It's still undergoing process, but these are some of the major. VAT is not under our purview, it's federal. But we also have withholding tax. Withholding tax is really not a tax type, but a form of method of collection. So on that withholding tax, we have several, like withholding tax on dividend, withholding tax on rent, withholding tax, you know, like that down the line. There are so many forms of withholding taxes. So, but these are the major issues. We have the payee, we have the direct assessment, and then we have the tax types, other tax types.
You talked about entertainment tax. What does that, what does it compose of?
That means like as gaming centers or entertainment centers, there is certain tax that are due to be paid to government, you know, for hosting that entertainment, whether it's a live show in Transcorp or at an event center like that. But there is much to be derived from that sector, but we are also trying to enforce in that sector.
Oh, okay. Festus Sapsa, I would like you to speak further on this in terms of sources of collection. You just mentioned payee, which I'm sure is the commonest. People would know. CITA is under the federal administration. That's companies income tax. That's under federal. VAT is also under federal, even though states and I imagine the FCT will also collect. But what are the other sources of taxation? Which one is direct and which one is indirect?
Other sources of income or FCT will collect, will look at the capital gain tax too, and the direct tax. You also, when you talk about direct tax, is what the taxpayer, the kind of tax, the tax that the taxpayer paid directly. You know, it's not charged, like it's not coming under the it's not coming under the income tax of individual. You know, when you look at the section 50, section 25, section 21 of personal income tax, 41 of personal income tax, is talking about of you assessing yourself and filing your income without notice. Even if the tax authority does not demand you from filing, you have to file it. And if you don't file it, you are already contravening the provisions of that act. So that actually the direct income tax is the tax that you assess it. It's not the one that the one you can file by yourself. The indirect tax is the one that you can do by way of withholding tax. The government takes it without you actually demanding from you.
Kingsley, if you don't have any further questions from here, let me bring in Dr. Kennedy Iwundo, who is a tax expert, and he joins us via Zoom. Dr. Iwundo, good to have you with us. And I'd just like to ask you, I would ask you to, first of all, before I give you my second question, to look at 100 billion revenue from tax for the FCT, considering the peculiarity in terms of its contributions to the GDP. How do you evaluate that?
Okay, FCT is a peculiar place, and from research we've observed that so many people living in FCT are not paying tax. I'm sure FCT has up to 2 million taxpayers. And we are asking ourselves, if the 2 million taxpayers pay 20,000 naira each in a year, it means that FCT can generate 400 billion. I think the problem now is to get people to pay the tax and to ensure that they are captured. There are so many taxpayers in FCT, especially those that are doing their private businesses, those in the market, and they are not complying. Majority of the taxpayers in FCT are those who are paying through payee, that's pay as you earn. And they look as if they're being paid tax by compulsion, because their institution will be held responsible if their personal income, the payee, is not remitted. But we are going beyond talking about payee. We are looking at what do we do to bring those people who are in the market, who are doing their personal businesses, to pay tax. And we have suggested that government has to introduce what we call institutional mechanism to force people to comply. There are two ways you can force people to comply to pay tax. One is by bringing some stumbling blocks in what they are supposed to do. For example, government can say, if you want to obtain driving license, if you want to obtain renew your license of your vehicle, if you want to get your international passport, you must present your tax clearance certificate. If you want to buy a land in Abuja, you must present your tax clearance certificate. If you want to enroll your children in the school, either unity school or federal school, you have to present your tax clearance certificate. By the time you bring this institutional mechanism, people will be forced to comply to pay their taxes. Then the second one is for government to be accountable. When government is accountable with the taxpayers' money, it will also increase the compliance level of paying taxes, especially in FCT. Right now, so many people are recalcitrant. So many people really don't want to pay the taxes. And that is the reason FCT-IRS for now is struggling to generate the revenue they're supposed to generate. FCT is a peculiar place that FCT-IRS can generate over 400 billion if the number of people in FCT that are supposed to pay tax, pay the right tax they're supposed to pay.
Thank you very much, Iwundu. I'll come back to you. I want to return to the acting chair of the IRS in the Federal Capital Authority. I asked again the types of collection, and the director of tax operation tried to explain. Is payee, that's to say, or let's say personal income tax, is that your principal focus? And assuming it is, what level of compliance and then cooperation do you get from the 6 area councils that make up the FCT?
Yes, so thank you very much. That's great. Yeah. So principally we're dealing with individuals, of course. So personal income taxes. And so as also a rider, I think let's look at what the law says. Section 41 of the Personal Income Tax Act makes it also a duty, I think, emphasizing what the Constitution says in Section 24F. It says every individual, without the tax authority asking you to, it is our duty. So all of us, it is our duty to file appropriate tax, returns at individual level. 90 days at the beginning of the year, so 31st of March. So without us or any of us not to have done that, if we are here, then we're already in breach. So I think what this service has now embarked on, we have created a system where we're comfortable in a way with what we're collecting as payee. So now the focus is now on the individual. This is where the personal income tax issues come up. And that is why we have, because it is much harder to collect taxes from an individual, like say, than from the institutions, the corporate bodies. So, and that is what has been our priority in the last 8 months, to educate, to enlighten the individual himself. And I think that also takes me to the recent seminar that we had. And we had 3 critical topics that we were discussing at the seminar, which were key. One, of course, managing recalcitrant taxpayers. The other one, I think we talked about enforcement and other strategies of enforcement, and of course, digitalization of the whole tax system to make it easier. Because our focus now is we have last year, Mr. Malik, we had a seminar in Lagos with all the area councils and every revenue generating agency here in Abuja, so that we can harmonize the tax collection system. You know, so probably have a huge dashboard, probably from the chairman's office to the minister's office to the manager's office, that see minute by minute what is dropping from which accounting, from which area. And I think the area councils have been quite supportive, because I think for the first time we were able to get all chairmen of the area councils in the same place for the 3 days that we spent during that seminar. And currently we are now trying to implement the outcome of that that engagement with the area councils. And I think it is in their interest and in everybody's interest in the administration that harmonization takes place. But it's a process. Like I said, the FCT-IRS is the youngest service, and this is all part of the process we're trying to engage now. But totally, they've been supportive, and they understand that it is in their interest that happens. So the priority also, going back to issues relating to individuals, what we are doing and what we have been doing for the last 8 months is to make sure that people, now it is your duty, it is your responsibility to file your taxes, to file your returns. And this is where, because now the service, through engagements, through collaborations with other agencies, has access to information that would guide them appropriately. I mean, yesterday we were having a management meeting with our tax controllers, and I specifically said, for me, it is not about the number. It is the quality of the tax clearance certificates we issue, not the quantity. So if at the end of the day we are issuing 1,000 or 100,000 TCCs that don't make sense, I would rather issue 10,000 that makes sense. And that is what the engagement with individuals it's going on ongoing, and we hope that in the next 2-3 years our collections from direct assessment would even surpass our collections from payee. And that's when I think, going back to what my brother Dr. Kennedy was saying in terms of the number of people that should be paying taxes, we're encouraging individuals now. And when you do that, I mean, you feel good with yourself, and you're able to ask questions. You're able to interrogate political leaders, because you've paid. But people today are living in Abuja, enjoying the services, of course, quite a number of them criticizing whatever they're getting, and they are not paying jack. Into the post. It's something I'm hoping and I'm willing, and we have put structures in place to change that.
You also had the roadshow sometime back, and part of the issues I picked out was that, one, you had the intention of creating awareness, and then you also had the intention of changing perceptions about tax compliance, and then about your reforms that So can you speak, on each of these issues, especially about the reforms? I know Kingsley asked about it, earlier on somehow. Yes, can you talk to us about these reforms, and then how aware now are residents of the FCT about your role, the new role you have assumed?
So thank you very much. I think that is key. So in the last, let's say, 3 years, the service has been creating internal capacity, for example, institutional framework to make to get the institution function as an institution. So when we were comfortable at that stage, our employees are being trained, we have capacity in-house, we are putting structures that would manage. So because we had to get ourselves in a comfortable place, so that when we go out, I mean, we are seen as of course, tax administrators, and we are respected. Mm-hmm. So when we felt we were at that, then this year we felt is the year that we're going to bring ourselves out for people to understand. In fact, because quite a number of people didn't even know there was an FCT Internal Revenue Service. And we identified that, and we felt, and of course, this engagement with you today is all part of a greater strategy that we're trying to implement. So that has been what, and so most of the roadshows, our tax offices in other, Buhari and other, as tax offices alone, they're also carrying out individual roadshows and engagement with, in fact, last week we just started the policy of know your neighbor. So every tax office, for example, if you are in Maitama, just take that, you should know everybody that lives in Maitama. It's a responsibility of the tax office. And so people are going to see more of us. People are going to read more of us. People are going to receive letters, emails from us, and we are going to try to hold you accountable. And I think the service, under my leadership and, of course, my management, intend to go the whole 9 yards. And I think that is the whole concept. You have a responsibility. The Constitution says, and the Personal Income Tax Act, believe you are responsible, so you are supposed to go and declare without us asking for you. from you. But today we are saying we are coming after you. So quite a number of people today in Abuja, I think from this morning to the last, will be receiving very, very interesting letters, communications from the service. So it is the intention to go like that.
Including the big men.
In fact, the very big men.
All right, I don't know. Thank you very much. Let's bring in again the Director of Tax Operation, Malik Tukur.
Yes,
Walk us through the process of self-assessment for the purposes of personal income tax.
Okay, self-assessment. Now, as the keyword said, self, meaning you assess yourself. Okay, the law provides that in fact, we are moving from government assessment to self-assessment, meaning that the office doesn't necessarily have to say this is your income and this is your assessment. No, I'm moving to an era of self-assessment. Now, it means that you, first of all, compute your income. Everything is about income. So, and by the way, it's global income, not only income derived from Nigeria. So, first of all, you compute your global income, then you come and apply the tax rate. We have what we call consolidated relief allowance. We call it CRA. You apply it, and then you get the derivative, the final thing, this minus this, you get the tax assessable. Sorry, income assessable. That means, okay, it's the income that is assessable. Once you are able to do that, you then apply the tax rates. Then for the employees, you divide it by 12 because it's monthly payment from their salary. But for the individual in business, it's income for last year, but it's based on preceding year. Income for the preceding year, you say, okay, this is the income, and therefore you apply this consolidated relief and then get the rates. So that is the way to do the self-assessment. You can do that by yourself, but the service is encouraging that you use tax professionals, the consultants. Sometimes you can get, well, not really into trouble, but it's advisable due to the complications of the tax laws. And then there are penalties for not filing in good time. There are penalties. So if you don't know it and you overstay, you'll be penalized. And then it's additional burden for you, for the taxpayer. So it is based on knowledge. So, but then in order to relieve the taxpayers, we provided this self-service portal. The FCT-IRS have a self-service portal that there are many kinds of compliance. Registration, you need to register. And by the way, we are able to get all major residents of FCT, to register. We have in our TIN database, TIN is Taxpayer Identification Number database, over 1 million plus, over 1,200,000 plus. So Dr. Iwundo is also right by saying, yes, we are more than that, maybe 2 million. So, but out of that, how many are complying? Payment is also a compliance issue. How many have registered and how many are paying? So that's the huge discrepancy that we have now.
What is global income?
Okay.
For purposes of taxation.
That's all right. For instance, you have some investment in Dubai. All right. That's the popular one. Some rented properties in Dubai. It can be in London or US, wherever. So you are supposed to declare it and say, this is it. I remember some time ago, there was collaboration with Dubai Authority, to get data about the Nigerians having income there. It can be dividend. You have invested in GE Electric or Honda of Japan, like that. So those are incomes outside Nigeria. In Nigeria, you can equally have that dividend. So the dividend abroad and the dividend here will form your global income. Yes, so that is it. So once you are able to do it, to compute your income, I'm emphasizing on income, you then apply the tax rates.
Yeah, again, still on the income stuff. Okay. I know that you've given the global view now.
All right.
There will be issues as to whether somebody can slip under the net and say, look, I'm not declaring this if it is from outside. That's an offense under the tax law. I'm just saying internally now, what constitutes income?
Okay. We have income, like I mentioned, a lot of the taxpayers are in employment. So your salary is income. If you are a trader, the income from trading is income. If you are a shareholder, the dividend that you get from the shareholding is income. Even if you are
an artisan, mechanic, hairdresser,
they are, all the income that they get are income. They are taxable. It's supposed to be declared annually and taxed.
What about Okada riders?
Including, actually.
You know why I'm chuckling? Your explanation is good. I will give you the opportunity of explaining. Because taxation requires diligent computation.
Oh, yes.
These artisans you just mentioned, somebody makes a say now, it's a trader or a vulcanizer, and then the next he says, I bet go and buy me a akara there, 100 naira with pap. He spends the money directly. So how then does he compute? Is it the money that he takes home at the end?
No.
At the day of it is the income, because again they have poor bookkeeping.
Yes,
habits. So how do you deal with those issues?
Okay, that is very good. In the context, all right, we have what is called presumptive tax. You presume this is an income, okay? This is your income. It can be based on grouping. For instance, Okada riders, okay, pep, or hairdressers, okay, presume this is the income, and then you just give them a small token that to pay, and they get their receipts. And now, it is really easy to do, in the sense that some POS device, you can pay there and then, and you get your receipts, which is accountable, and is going to government coffers, not individuals' accounts. Okay? So, but then, let's look at the 80-20 rule. We have the big guys, and the other big shots that are supposed to be complying. Not the mama put kind of thing. So if we use our efforts, to chase the mama put, what
revenue are you getting?
What revenue are we getting? So, but if we go after the agencies in the big sector, all right, even those with the global income, we believe is going to boost our revenue.
So, we will come to you in a moment because it has to do with legal, but I still need to stay with it. Isn't that the reason why you should, chase, for want of words, property tax? Okay. Because you touched on it earlier on, and then you withheld what you were going to say.
Yes.
Because Abuja itself is a very giant construction site. Yes. I don't think there's any area within the 6 area councils where one development is not, or the other is not going on. And these people, they get away with it.
Yep.
This should be your game changer.
Yeah.
So
yes,
what is going to happen? Are you also going to start, administering tax?
Yes. Like we all know, everything is about law. Everything is about law. So meaning that we work within the confines of the law. So even if it is, for instance, value-added tax, there was the value-added tax, act, dictating how to go about it. Initially, it was 5%. It was changed to 7.5%. and how to go about input tax, output tax. That's all the VAT computation. So the same thing with property tax. It is a professional thing. There are estate evaluation experts, QS, quantity surveyors, that need to define these properties, and enumeration as well that need to be undertaken. So yes, but then it is these regulations that we are waiting for, not that.
Yes. Okay. Let's Kingsley.
But there's no property tax law in the FCT at present, is there?
No. Other than yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. In FCT now, there are actually no property tax regulations, but the FCT-IRS Act, there's a provision therein that FCT-IRS will collect property tax. So I think what service is making effort to do is to come up with the regulations that would state the procedures on how to collect the property tax, because FCT-IRS Act have already made provisions that the FCT-IRS can collect property tax. So it's now to go about or to categorize which area may determine and all that, and the cost, and the price, the percentage that will be paid. This is what FCT-IRS is trying to put in place by coming out with a regulation that will state clearly the procedures and processes on how to collect the property tax.
Yes.
I don't, Sasa, yes, I don't. I want to say something. Let's be clear about this, because in the law of taxation, yes, there is a strict demarcation between the authority to collect tax,
yes,
and the power to impose tax. The authority to collect is not equal to the power to impose.
Okay.
Are you mindful of this? Because I mean, what is there, the power donated in the FCT-IRS, from what you have said,
yes,
is authority to collect.
Yes.
But the power to impose, the power will include, of course, and if there is any subsidiary legislation, who is liable, what rate, and then what duration that will cover. Is that the current case with property tax in the FCT? Is that what you are dealing with?
Yes, that's what we are dealing with. We are dealing with to how to impose that tax. As you said, the powers to collect is already given to FCT-IRS. Then the service is now trying to work out how the legislation that will impose the percentage to collect that tax. And I think efforts have been made, even the previous years, to draft a bill, and a bill which is on the way to National Assembly, for them to look at it and then pass it into law. And then that will impose the fine or the charge on what to collect in a particular house or in a particular property. Maybe from what we're looking at it, we're also looking at definitely the prices will not be them, or the fine, the percentage will not be the same. The house in Asokolo may be different from house in Kuba, will be different. The house in Metama will be different. But when that law comes to friction, FCT-IRS may have already been given power to collect. So we'll now use the charges imposed by the legislation to collect the tax.
You can be sure that it won't be easy. We should do the very best, Malik, you wanted to add something too. Yes.
It's about integration, and data. Information is really key. Information is key to meeting this compliance. Our chairman has mentioned that, yes, we are making effort to liaise with revenue collection agencies. And then Dr. Ewundo has also mentioned the issue of putting blocks on the way. Like for TCC, if you need driver's license, you get this and that. So it's all about data. With, for instance, integration to ages, the property owners, we'll know who has the properties. Then we can go after them. With integration to water board, we know the same thing. AEPB, you know, this integration, even the area councils, I know there is issue of tenement rate, you know, they have been going about collecting. So if you're able to integrate and have that data, then we can build it up and get a global income.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Issues of self-assessment, which of course the responsibility on the individual. And so we've had people coming to us, seemingly very wealthy individuals, and because it's a self-assessment, and then they declare something that even I will not declare as income and pay tax, which is fine, and that is the whole spirit behind the self-assessment that you have asked about. But now the service has access to information, which is key. So you don't just walk because they said self-assessment and then you come and declare and the service will accept. No, I think we have put a process now in place that you come to declare, yes, it's a self-assessment, but we have the right to interrogate your assessment based on additional information that we have about you. So this is just to say, of course, we're on Good Morning Nigeria, but and I'm sure Nigerians are watching us. If you are a resident of FCT, you don't take that for granted, because the service will not accept some of these declarations, because it has been a recurring, embarrassing issue in the last 3 years. But I think we have come to a very comfortable stage now where we have access to information. And quickly also, I tell people, when you get a letter from us, better know that I know much more than your address. If you get a phone call or a text message from the FCT Internal Revenue Service, please kindly know that we know much more than your telephone number. Same thing with an email or any means of communication. So as long as you get something from us, understand that there is a reason why we are contacting you. So when we are encouraging people through all what we are doing now, reviving the culture of filing returns, it's because we are comfortable now to interrogate the filings, the assessment, the self-assessment that Mr. Malik was trying to answer in the. So it's just to be clear that it's self-assessment is a responsibility, is a duty by the Constitution, but the service, based on additional information, which right now we have and we are comfortable with, we will interrogate it. And this is where issues of tax evasion, tax avoidance comes in.
Okay. Doctor,
well, I don't know which area you want to go to, but I still wanted us to continue with clarification.
Please go ahead,
of the issue relating to income and the differentiation, what to take out, what not to take out. And I would like Kennedy Iwundu to respond to this. Dr. Iwundu, tell our viewers what should be regarded as income. The Director of Tax Operation has already explained what global income will be. Offshore, that's probably understandable. What should be income? And then what percentage of that is liable to tax? I'm asking this question because if you are a shareholder in a corporation that is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, or you have a fixed deposit, and then your fixed deposit earns interest, before you are paid that interest, there is a withholding tax on the interest. The same way you have withholding tax on your dividend. Does that withholding tax amount to part of your personal income tax or what?
No.
Okay. Yeah. No. Before I go into definition of income that is to be subjected to personal income tax, I want to give more clarification on the issue of property tax, especially in FCT. There is no property tax law as said by the directors of FCT-IRS. However, we have what we call capital gain tax. Capital gain tax is a tax on disposal of properties. In FCT today, there are several disposal of properties. People are buying and selling their properties, individuals. The question is that are they really paying capital gain tax on those properties they are disposing? Yeah, the law says that if you buy a property or own a property and dispose it, you are supposed to pay 10% of the gain you have made. Today we hear people say their property is Maitama 1 billion, 2 billion, 500 million. The question we are asking is that these people that are disposing their properties, are they actually paying the capital gain tax as stipulated by law? That's one thing. So we expect the FCT-IRS to collaborate with the AGs, the FCT administration, to make it compulsory that if you are selling your property in Abuja, you must pay capital gain tax before they will complete your documentation. So this is a way we can generate a lot of money in FCT. There are so many properties that are changing hands in FCT, and the revenue is not collecting, the revenue authority is not collecting capital gain tax. So there must be an institutional framework, a collaboration between FCT-IRS and FCT administration to say that if you are disposing your property, if you are selling your property, you must pay 10% of the gain you have made in disposal of this property. So that is my clarification on the area of property tax. Then coming back to the issue of income, I want to say that the Finance Act has made it that those who earn 30,000 minimum wage and below are exempted from personal income tax. The Finance Act is very clear. Those who earn 30,000 and below are exempted from personal income tax. Now, the FCT-IRS has a duty to have a data of individual who earn above 30,000 minimum wage. And that is a challenge. One of the challenges in tax administration is lack of data. How do we know those who earn 30,000 below and those who earn 30,000 above? That's number one. Then number two, if you can be able to segment and segregate and differentiate those who earn 30,000 minimum wage below and those who earn above minimum wage, you can now begin to face those who are supposed to pay tax. Now, when you get those who are supposed to pay tax, the tax law is very simple. The tax law will grant you on your total income a consolidated relief of 20% of your total income plus 200,000. When they grant you that, the rest will be subjected to tax. For example, if you earn 1 million in a year, your relief is 20% of the 1 million, which is 200,000, plus another 200,000. That means 400,000 will be given to you as a relief. That means the remaining 600,000 will be subjected to tax. And there are so many applied rates, 7%, 11%, and so on. The maximum rate is 24%. However, based on the question you have asked, if you have earned dividend and it has suffered withholding tax, you have earned any income, interest that has suffered withholding tax, those withholding tax you have suffered can serve as your tax credit, which you are going to present to the revenue authorities. In course of this business is that the taxes are suffered, and I'm using it to offset the tax I'm supposed to pay you. And once the taxpayer is able to present those withholding taxes they have suffered, the revenue authority will use it to offset the personal income tax they're supposed to pay. But what is important in Nigeria today is globally, there are two factors that makes people to pay tax globally. Those two factors are, one, the punishment. People pay tax because if they don't pay, they'll be punished. The other one is government accountability. People pay tax because government is accountable with their tax money. But Nigeria, these two are lacking. People are not being punished because when they don't pay tax, nobody is punishing them. Also, people feel government is not accountable with taxpayers' money. So these two factors are lacking, and that is why we have low tax compliance in the country, not just in FCT, but in the entire nation.
Absolutely, Dr. Iwundu, absolutely. And I'm sure when we come back from this break, we will pursue those two issues and see what the guest will have to say about them. Government's accountability and, of course, measures to enforce compliance of tax paying. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
You're welcome back, and still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are here discussing emerging issues in tax compliance in the FCT-IRS. So a number of points for us to deal with. I want to bring in the acting executive chair of the FCT-IRS, Haruna Abdullahi, along, of course, with his team. First, the acting chair. Clear this for our viewers, because we had time in the past on Good Morning Nigeria to interrogate what the JTB was doing with regard to, one, multiplicity of TIN, tax identification number, and then two, rejection of tax clearance certificates from one jurisdiction in another. So tell us, because you say if we send you a message via SMS or otherwise, we'll know more about you than you probably would think that we do.
Yeah.
There are persons who in the FCT who have received, they say, oh, this is your team. In the meantime, some years ago, the FIRS said there was now a global, if you may, a nationally applicable team. What is the situation today? And what is also the situation, assuming I want to access a service in Kano, and I'm not resident in Kano. Kano says, for purposes of access of this service, you need to submit a tax clearance certificate. I'm using Kano as an example. I know that Lagos in the past, let me cite Lagos. Lagos in the past will reject a tax clearance certificate from elsewhere other than Lagos. What is the situation today?
Thank you very much, and it's quite interesting. And I think the FCT-IRS, I think it's the newest member to join the JTB TIN platform, I think a month ago, Mr. Malik, something like that. So, and we encourage it, we support it, and now there is a JTB TIN, which is a national team. So your team, you can move from Lagos, Abuja, and you have one centralized team. And the FCT Internal Revenue Service did a workshop, I think, a few weeks ago, and we highlighted the JTB team. I think there was even a public statement that FCT-IRS, FCT has now joined the platform. I think as we speak, almost all members of the JTB are using the JTB team. There's, I think, 2 or 3 states that have now highlighted the JTB team platform. And in terms of tax clearance certificates, so I think that's the whole idea around the joint tax board. We collaborate all over. I give you an example. Recently, there was a guy that took an FCT-IRS TCC and went to Lagos for a certain transaction, for example. Of course, Lagos did not reject it, but they felt the kind of transaction the guy was embarking on in Lagos didn't make sense with the kind of declaration he had with Abuja, and they called our attention to it. And that is why this issue of self-assessment, if it happened 8 months ago, it's not going to happen anymore. That individual now is going to be interrogated, and we will know that he is a high net worth individual only for him to go. And so that collaboration, and it is expected during the election processes. Some people that contested elections in other states got their tax clearance certificates from Abuja, for example, and they took it to their states, and the states accepted. So I think that in that context, the JTB has done very well to harmonize its relationship under the TCC angle. Yes, but if you bring something from Bauchi, for example, and what you are trying to do with it here doesn't make sense, it is our duty as partners and board members of the Joint Tax Board to call attention, just like Lagos did to Abuja, to say, hey, this guy is doing this massive transaction in Lagos, and yet this is what he has paid you. And we recalled, it was great, we interrogated it, and this same taxpayer was now invited. Then we knew, and unfortunately for him, it was after we had gotten access to this information. I'm saying with him and said, look, this is who you are. So of course these things are happening, but I think the JTB platform is
what was the consequence for that?
In terms of
now you have exposed to him with the information you know about his work.
You see, and I think we will talk to that in terms of compliance, in terms of penalties, in terms of that. Mr. Festus will talk about that. But yes, our role doesn't end in collection. Our role also is education and enlightenment. It is key for people to understand that. And we know some people sometimes it's not deliberate, sometimes it is, but as long as we are changing the perception, this is also our something we find for us is very important. And I think the service in the last few months has been engaging in the public domain in terms of enlightening people to that. But there are a lot of consequences for what we are doing, and I think probably the people there.
Okay, Mr. Quound.
Shabsa.
Yes, I like to call you by your indigenous name. I mean, that makes sense.
Shabsa is also indigenous, I imagine.
Yes. Quound. Mr. Quound. From your position, I'd like for you to share with us what you have found have been the emerging issues now in terms of tax compliance. What have been the legal issues that you've had to deal with, and are there measures? Do residents of the FCT know that if they breach compliance, they could face the music?
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes, the major issue in the recent tax seminar we had was one of the challenges we faced that we wanted the public to know, reason of FCT to know, is for them to rise up to their responsibilities as provided in the provisions of the constitutions and other legislations. Constitution says you should file your income honestly and truthful and make payment promptly. Having provided for that for every citizen, then Section 41 of Personal Income Tax also asks for every citizen, every resident, particularly in FCT, because we are applying personal income tax and other relevant tax law as provided by Establishment Act of FCT-IRS. They have given us power in Section 2 of the Act to do so. So Section 41 of the Constitution says every citizen or every taxable person specifically should declare his income without being demanded for, or without the authority asking or giving you notice, voluntarily declare it and pay tax on it. So it is important at this point for a resident of a city to know that payment of tax or declaration of your income annually you are not charging. Tax authorities not charging for anything in doing that. And this declaration you must declare it whether you have income or you don't have income. The moment you declare it, you have complied with the provision of the law. And if you don't declare, that's where the problem is. The moment you don't declare, you have contravened provisions of the law. And you are committed an offense. An offense is a criminal offense for not filing your returns. The law made it criminal. And it's a strict liability offense because you don't have a defense in what you have done.
How do you hope to enforce compliance? That's what I said.
Yes, enforcing the compliance is under provision.
Tighten the nose.
Yes, of course, yes. Even as that,
you have new measures.
Yes, we have that.
Engagement.
Yes.
All in that context, because we've been talking about enforcement for the last 8 months, and we've been building capacity for enforcement. We have about 200 of our staff right now that have concluded some training in terms of tax audit and investigation, and also public speaking and all that. And I have also told them that it's not about the technical aspect, it's also about how you communicate. So the service is at a very good position right now to implement the law in terms of what the law says we should do. But we are also, now this is where the carrot and stick approach will come. But all this that we're doing, I think the impact or import of it will be seen in the next maybe 1 or 2 years going forward. Yeah.
What the Deputy Chairman said. section, because we are going to apply the penalty and punishment to those who don't file, for non-filers. And section 57 of personal, 57 of FCT Act, particularly subsection 1, says that any person who contravenes this section of non-filing shall, on conviction, be liable to pay a fine of 200,000 or suffer imprisonment of 6 months or both. That is for individual. And even for corporate bodies or firm or associations that do not file returns, because the law says in section 81 of personal income that they must file returns of their employees. So if they don't file, they also suffer the same punishment. But the interesting thing is that when you don't file under section 81 of personal income tax, the law said the service will proceed against the principal staff of that organization to proceed against them and convict them, and they will also pay similar penalty. Also, when we are looking at the law, we are looking at also section 26 of Finance Acts, the recent Finance Acts of 2021. Also give punishment for that, for non-filing. If you don't file within the period that is stipulated by the law, you will be...
What is the period?
The period of filing for companies is 30 days. That is on the 31st of January. But for individual, the law gives you 90 days to file within that period.
Which period? Which period? 90 days within which period?
That is starting from January. No, end of the year. That is starting from January to March.
March 31st.
31st,
very
yes.
quickly, very quickly. 2 issues I want to raise very quickly, and they will require very simple answers. Probably one of them will need some explanation from the acting executive chair. Is there an age barrier to personal income taxation? Lawyer.
Well, a discussion we had yesterday. So go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Actually, there's no age barrier.
100 years old, you still pay.
You file your returns. If you are still earning income, but where you have retired and you are earning pension, the law does not compel you to pay tax on pension. But if you have other assets, you have properties that are running, you have other companies that are running, you will still pay. If you are still earning income, you pay tax on those. You declare and pay tax on it.
Okay, so you have the last question.
Yeah, last question for him. Personal income tax is very important, but it's a function of residence.
Yes.
And Abuja has a number of boundary communities, people coming from Nasarawa and from Niger to work in the FCT. I don't want to be a champion for Nasarawa and Niger state government to chase after them for their personal income tax. How are you dealing with such boundary residents?
It's a continuous process. We have staff that live in Nasarawa state come to work.
Yeah, for instance, it's Nasarawa state.
And some of our people from FCT, and also it's a continuous engagement that we've been having under the JTB platform as well, and between states that will continue until the end. But as much as possible, we're always working on that.
Acting Executive Chairman, FCT Internal Revenue Service, Haruna Abdullahi. Thank you very much for coming to share this perspective with us. Let me also appreciate Malik Tuko, Director, Tax Operation, FCT Internal Revenue Service. Many thanks to you. And Kwaon Sapsa, Assistant Director, Legal Services, FCT Internal Revenue Service. Thank you. Dr. Kennedy Iwundo, our tax guru expert who hopes is hoping that FCT will make how many billions? 400 million. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
All right. Just before we take our sports segment, you didn't tell our viewers the spelling of Festus's middle name. The spelling is like Kwara Ondo.
It's a combination of two states.
Kwara Ondo. All right. Let's take our sports segment now.
Nigeria's Falconer got their campaign at this year's FIFA Women's World Cup in Costa Rica off to a winning start after edging France 1-0 in Group D opening game. The Falconers were awarded a free kick close to the edge of the French box, but goalkeeper Marie Petutu came out to save the dangerous swank in effort. In the 10th minute, France had the first attempt on goal, but skipper Lorena Faeser's shot was well claimed by Falconers keeper Omni Oyono. On 20th minute, the game was suspended by Mexican referee Francia Gonzalez due to heavy rain.
the game resumed, and it was France who almost broke the deadlock in 23rd minute from a dangerous corner, with the Falconers keeper misjudging the flight of the ball, but the defense cleared the danger. Falconers had a big chance on 58th minute through Messi Doko, but she was denied by France keeper. In the 85th minute, the Falconers took the lead through Floris Sebastian, who ran onto a through pass from Idoko before slotting past the French keeper.
Maybe here come Nigeria for a chance. It started with the goalkeeper. It ends with the top scorer in qualifying, Floris Sebastian.
The game, which was played in the early hours of Friday, saw Floris Sebastian get the only goal. Next up for the Falconets is the second Group D clash with South Korea on Sunday. Meanwhile, Morocco Football Federation has sacked national team coach Vahid Halilhodžić just 3 months before the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The FRMF said the decision was taken because of disagreements on how to prepare the Atlas Lions for the finals. Halilhodžić took charge of the North Africans in August 2019 and led the side to the quarterfinals of this year's African Cup of Nations in Cameroon. He then secured World Cup qualification in March, following a 5-2 aggregate win over DR Congo.
All right, that does it for us on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria, the last for the week. There'll be another one on Monday, and I do wish you a happy weekend. But don't always forget that you can take action against rape and rapists. Join us, that way you become a star.
Enjoy your weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Atorosak. Bye-bye.